One word you've been using to describe red meat is fatty. So I want to talk more about that piece. Are we talking about, there's a variety of different cuts when it comes to steaks and different percentages of fat when it comes to ground beef.
Yeah.
How much fat are we talking and why is that piece important?
Yeah. So the two most satiating macronutrients, I don't think anybody would argue this, is protein and fats. And so many people they'll try to include more meat in their diet, but they'll eat only the leanest cuts. And so they wind up effectively eating a higher protein, high carb, but inadequate fat. And so they're hungry all the time. You're going to fail if your goal is weight loss, or if your goal is reversing type 2 diabetes. If you're hungry all the time, you're going to fail. You're not going to reach your goal. And so our it's very clear in the anthropological literature that we always ate the fat that came with the meat. We would go out of our way to get the fat around the eyeballs or the fat around the kidneys. This is documented time and time and time again in anthropological research. Now, it may sound gross to modern people. They're like, no, I only want it skinless. I don't even want the skin on my chicken breast, much less the fat around the eyeballs, Dr. Berry. I get it. I understand. But that's social programming. That's the social meme that you currently believe in. But healthy humans always eat the fat that comes with the meat. It also, if you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to reverse fatty liver, or you're trying to reverse type 2 diabetes or hypertension, or the list goes on, if you have a goal, a health goal, then you've got to be satiated after your meals. You've got to be full, and you've got to stay full for many hours after your meal, right? You're not going to do that if you're eating a high carb, low protein diet. Even with lots of fat, you're still going to be munching all the time. That's basically the Pepsi Cola and Dorito and honey bun diet. High sugar, high fat. You're going to be hungry all the time. You're not getting enough protein. You're not being satiated. If you try to do a high carb, high protein diet, for most people, they're not going to be satiated. They're going to keep snacking. And every time you snack, what happens to your insulin level? Every time you put carbs or protein in your mouth, your insulin goes up, right? More with carbs, but still some with protein. So you've got hyperinsulinemia. You're hungry all the time. You're having to eat snacks in between meals and a bedtime snack, and you're not losing the weight, or you're not lowering the A1C. The sweet spot is to eat an adequate protein, adequate fat diet, as low in carbohydrates as possible. Now, there's a ton of argument right now on Twitter and other places about, should it be high protein, adequate fat, or should it be high fat, adequate protein? What I tell people is I don't care. Try 90 days both ways, because you're going to discover what works best for your particular DNA on that normal distribution curve. I don't know if you fall here, or right in the fat middle. I don't know. But you can find out yourself by doing 90 days of high protein, adequate fat, very low carb. If that works for you, huzzah, I love it. But if that doesn't work for you, then you're going to do 90 days of high fat, still adequate protein, very, very low carb. And one of those two is going to work for you and your health improvement, your health optimization goals. Then you win, and therefore I win, because my goal is for you to be healthy. That's why I do this each and every day. And so I don't care if it's high protein, adequate fat, or high fat, adequate protein. Either one is infinitely better for you than high carb, shitty fat, moderate protein. That's the literal worst diet on the planet. And there's lots of vegan influencers saying, oh, there's lots of protein in plants. I think the research, again, is very clear in animal biology and human biology studies that plant protein is not as effective as animal protein. It's just not. I'm sorry. I wish it were. Having a fight on Twitter yesterday with a vegan who says that we make all the amino acids we need. We don't need to. There's no such thing as an essential amino acid. That we don't make. There's no essential vitamins. We can make all the vitamins. We just have to eat calories. Literally said that. And this is a registered dietitian. And I'm like, man, I don't know what planet you're from. But the planet I'm on and all the people that I'm trying to help, we know that we need to have adequate amino acids from protein and adequate fatty acids from fat. and adequate minerals and adequate vitamins, or our health is going to suffer. We just know this. How you don't know this, I'm not sure, but there are people out there like that.
Well, you've made it clear for people it's an individual thing when it comes to the protein and fat. We need to experiment, find out the ratio best for us. But to get into the nuance for you when it comes to fatty meat, are you avoiding steaks, say, that are a leaner cut? Are you adding, say, like butter on top of your fatty steak to increase the fat? I'm just trying to get into the nuance of what that looks like for you.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm the guy over here on this end of the curve that fattens very easily. I was 297 pounds at my fattest. I developed type 2 diabetes very easily. I had severe prediabetes and didn't even know it because I was just living my life as an ER doc and as a family doctor. And so I have to follow a high fat, adequate protein, super low carbohydrate diet to keep all my health markers, all those markers I talked about previously, to keep those all normal. I have to follow that diet. And so I'll have a fatty ribeye. I've got a friend who's a butcher. I've got a friend who's a meat processor. And not everybody can afford that, and you don't have to do that. We'll talk about how expensive your meat needs to be in a second if you want to, Jesse. But I tell my butcher, never trim the fat. I want the fat that comes with the pork chop, the fat that comes with the ribeye. And in some cases, I'll get a giant ribeye and it's got a cap of fat on it that's an inch and a half thick. My lamb chops have a 3/4 inch fat cap on them. If you trim the fat on my meat, you're no longer my butcher. And he's well aware of that. And so I have to have that fat in order to stay satiated, because if not, I'll be in here in the cabinets at 8 p.m. rummaging around trying to find a snack. My markers of inflammation will be going up. My A1C will be starting to creep up. My triglycerides will start to creep up very quickly if I don't eat enough protein and enough saturated fat, animal fat, to keep me satiated and to keep me from wanting to snack. I've been a snacker my entire life. And I discovered my prediabetes, 8-9 years ago, and started out trying to reverse it with primal paleo. That helped a tiny bit, not much. Keto, 80% of all my problems gone. Carnivore, fixed it and kept it fixed for 5.5 years now. So that, for me personally, that's what it has to be. And for the vast majority of people who come to either keto, ketovore, or carnivore with their primary goal being weight loss, they have to do high fat, adequate protein. That's the sweet spot for them to lose the stored fat. And for so many people, I know somebody right now listening to this, their head is exploding. They're like, this doctor just said to eat more fat to lose fat. How the hell does that make sense? And when you really dig into the human physiology, it does make sense. Because the ultimate goal here is to be satiated, to not be hungry constantly, and to have a very low insulin level in your blood. When your insulin level gets to a low enough point, you start to burn body fat effortlessly. You don't even have to exercise. We've got people who have lost 200 pounds who are paraplegics in a wheelchair, and they don't exercise at all. And we have people who come to the conferences all the time saying, I thought you were full of crap, because I weighed 450 pounds. And you said, I watched The Biggest Loser. They're on the treadmill. Everybody I watch, they're like, oh, you've got to exercise or you're going to fail. I just literally sat in my recliner for a year and ate beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And I lost 200 pounds of fat. And I know it was fat because some of these people have the financial means to get a DEXA scan or to get a full body MRI. And guess what was preserved while they lost 200 pounds of stored body fat? Their bone density was preserved. Their muscle density and their muscle percentage was preserved on a diet of nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and then maybe liver, some kind of liver, one serving a week. They lost almost no muscle, but they lost this extraordinary amount of fat, not exercising. And in some cases, a few of them even put on muscle, even though they weren't exercising. It's almost like that when you're eating fatty meat, your body understands what you're doing, and you'll start to put on not a Arnold Schwarzenegger amount of muscle, but you'll start to actually increase your muscle strength and density and your muscle percentage to a certain degree. because your body understands, oh, you're getting healthy again. You're getting ready to hunt. I need to get you in shape. Now, obviously, to have show muscle, you're going to have to lift weights. Everybody knows that. I'm not implying that you can have show muscles sitting in the recliner eating beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, but I'm just telling you what we've seen. We've seen black and white studies again and again and again from people sharing their lab work with us, sharing their DEXA scans, sharing their MRIs if they can afford that. Yeah, you can do that without exercise, and then now let's talk about the price of the meat. There's a subset of carnivores, subset of health gurus out there that say you're going to destroy your health unless you only eat grass-fed, grass-finished, that's been only grazed on the slopes of the Himalayan mountains from the month of March to May. That's the only kind of beef you can eat. It costs $200 a pound, but that's you. And also I sell that. You can get a box from me once a month of that panda massage meat. No. Is grass-finished beef a little bit better than feedlot beef? Yes, it is. It's anywhere from 3 to 6% better with regards to the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, to the omega-3 profile. It's going to have more vitamins and minerals, but is it a deal breaker for somebody who cannot afford $22 an ounce beef? No, it's not. We've had hundreds of people, Jesse, in our private group lose almost 100 pounds, if not more, eating the big 5-pound sticks of the cheapest beef that you can buy at the discount grocery. And there's nothing magic in any of the beef. That's the thing, people, once they get that paradigm shift, they're like, oh, I get it. So grass finished is better, but it's not mandatory. I can eat any beef. Like literally, I've had people lose almost 100 pounds eating Spam and hot dogs and bologna because they chose the lowest carb version with the fewest added things. They try to get just pure meat, hot dogs, pure meat bologna. And Spam's going to have some carbs in it, but not many. If you compare it to Lucky Charms or Doritos or Pepsi Cola, it's very low carb. And so if previously they were eating a junk diet and they start just literally eating nothing but eggs, bologna, hot dogs, and Spam, they'll lose weight like crazy because they're keeping that insulin level down low, much lower than it was when they were eating the Lucky Charms and the Doritos. They'll lose all that stored fat. They'll lose the fat stored in their liver and in their pancreas. They'll start to lose the visceral fat. And then guess what happens, Jesse, after a few months of losing that weight while sitting in the recliner? All of a sudden, they feel like doing something that they haven't felt like doing in sometimes decades. You know what it is? Exercise. They actually feel like exercising, and I don't have to yell at them and berate them and belittle them to get them to exercise. They'll pop up and say, guess what I did yesterday? I went and walked a mile. It's the first time in 20 years. It was amazing. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that again. Thank you so much. And it's not because of any magic that I'm performing. It's just because they finally honored their species. They honored their physiology. They honored their biochemistry by eating a proper human diet. And as soon as you start to do that, your body, no matter how sick it is currently, immediately it says, thank you. I'll get to work healing now. It's literally that simple.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
Any disease you can think of that's chronic and progressive, it's being caused by hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, and chronic inappropriate levels of inflammation. Your default setting is good health. And if you're not enjoying good health,